I was basically brought up in the middle of a feud. Guns been shot left, right and centre from each family member, over the side, over the walls. I'd show up to a door, knock at the door. If they didn't answer, I'd kick the door in. I'd walk in with a lump hammer. I had a friend of mine working with me. He was my debt collector. He was a madman. He would just go straight in, bang, bang, bang. A lot of the time, they probably wouldn't even be there. I'd look for the most valuable thing and leave. Someone comes over the field with a double-barreled shotgun just laying into us. I said, I want to turn pro in boxing. That quickly went out the window when I heard about this bare knuckle thing, and I thought, I had a couple of bare knuckle fights in the past. This is suited to me. Oh yeah, man, a couple of my friends got killed. Bang, bang, here's 2 gunshots. So my friend Jordan puts his whole body around the pram to try and protect the pram. He got shot 5 times. Bare knuckle fighting in a ring for cash. I want some of that, Brutality at its finest. I hate losing. I'd rather spend a couple of years in prison than lose. You give a respect to a man that comes out and fights you. And I believe that's the way it should be. There was a mother and father in one. When I was younger, I see my mother come in with a broken nose after having a fight with a woman. Just because you come from a bad place doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Welcome back to the Criminal Connection podcast, and this episode is proudly brought to you by Betovo.
You're probably wondering how the Podfather brings you the best true crime podcast every week without fail, with great energy. Well, here's the thing. To bring that energy, I have to feel my best and be at my best. And that's where Hype energy drinks come in with their powerful blend of vitamins, taurine and caffeine. Hype energy gives me that extra edge to stay sharp and focused in every interview. It's not just about the buzz. It's about clarity, alertness and bringing my A game to every conversation. Now, Hype energy isn't your average fuel. We're talking flavours like explosive cherry, red berry buzz and even mojito, mint and lime. No weird aftertaste, just bold and refreshing flavour. No wonder they've won an award for taste. Right? And if you're all about the zero sugar life, make sure you check out the watermelon and cheesecake flavours. All the flavour with none of the guilt. Yeah, I know, cheesecake in a can sounds mad, right? But trust me, it'll blow your mind. Now, the marketing team at Hype Energy keep telling me that MFP stands for more frigging power. Now, I've told them it's not about that, it's about more frigging Podfather. Know what I mean? And lucky for you lot, if you want to try it out, go to the checkout and type in Podfather in the offer code and get 20% off. Not only that, if you use this exclusive code, you'll be entered into a competition prize draw where you'll be in with a chance to win a Hype goodie bag signed by yours truly. And 5 lucky winners will get a 3-month supply of Hype. So let's get into it. The Podfather is officially powered by Hype Energy Drinks, because when you feel your best, you're at your best. This season's podcast is brought to you by Superstar Speakers Events. They are the UK's #1 destination for exclusive live experiences. These guys don't just put on events, they deliver unforgettable nights with some of the biggest names in sports, entertainment and beyond. From jaw-dropping Q&A sessions to meet and greets and unmissable stage interviews, they bring you face-to-face with the icons you love. Whether it's football legends spilling the secrets of the beautiful game or entertainment stars sharing untold stories, Superstar Speakers knows how to create memories that last a lifetime. And here's the big news. I'll be teaming up with them for an evening with Terry Stone, a live tour you won't want to miss. Head over to superstarspeakers.co.uk for dates, details and tickets. Massive thanks to Superstar Speakers for supporting our podcast. Please go check out their up-and-coming events now and book yourself a night to remember. Click on the link below and get involved. Welcome back to the Criminal Connection podcast. My name is Terry Stone and today we're joined by an upstanding member of the Connors travelling community in Dublin, Ireland. He is flown in exclusively for this podcast. You may have seen him on social media. He is called El Paco. So please put your hands together for Paco. Hey!
What's happening, Terry? How are you? Good to see you too, man.
So I'm really interested in where El Paco comes from, because it sounds like if you was a Spanish fighter, you'd be called El Paco.
Yeah, Terry, it's funny you said that. So here's the thing. My real name's Patrick. In my community, they used to call me Packy. Packy's usually a short name for Patrick in the travelling community. A lot of travellers call that, right? But I started a music company a couple of years back, and people just start calling me Paco by an accident,
Got it.
And then I was thinking to myself, you know, I want to make it sound something a little more appealing for social media.
Right.
Me name. So I just added the L and kind of give it that kind of Spanish sound, something a little bit more sexy, as I was a music promoter and stuff, you know.
Because when I looked on your TikTok, I was a bit disappointed because I thought you might have been doing some like flamenco dancing.
Yeah, but I'm on the drink.
Obviously, you know, I've sort of come about you through the bare knuckles side of things.
Yeah.
Love to hear, you know, you've obviously been in Ireland all your life, but just really for our audience, just, you know, what was it like growing up, you know, on a site, being born into that traveller's life?
Do you know what, Terry? Look, my latest memory growing up, if I was to go back as far as I can go back, was when I was 3 years old. I just remember looking up and I seen my uncles and aunties running around our site. You know, I was wondering what's going on. Little did I know, a couple of years later, I was in the middle of a feud. There was guns being shot left, right and centre from each family member over the side, over the walls, and that's why my family was running back and forward. You know, I was basically brought up in the middle of a feud. That was with a Ward family. I'm actually half Ward myself, so they'd be distant cousins of ours. But yeah, things got very mad, Terry, and there wasn't huge numbers within our family at the time with our older family members, and we ended up leaving. That always kind of stuck with me, you know. It made me very angry. I wasn't happy about that, you know. The fact that we're kind of overtaken by numbers, you know.
I mean, for our audience, you know, there's obviously a massive interest in the gypsy stroke traveller communities because obviously, you know, there's been all these like reality shows. There's been the bare knuckle fighting. There's been the MMA. There's been all these different things, and obviously Tyson Fury being the heavyweight champion of the world, I think he really shone a spotlight on that life. And you know, you've had Paddy Doherty, you've had Dougie Joyce, you've had all these different people that have sort of popped up. And you know, for our viewers and listeners, when they hear about these traveller feuds, I mean, obviously people have seen the call outs online. Yeah. Where the guy's standing going, I'll fight you and I'll fight your mum and I'll fight your dad and all that. And then it's sort of like, then he comes on and he goes, and I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill your dog and I'm going to kill your cat. And there's this whole sort of like mad sort of thing online. And then is a lot of that for social media, or is that the new way of doing it? Because in the old days, would they just literally turn up and then they'd all just start fighting?
Well, look, Terry, not to call anybody out here or make myself some enemies, but for me, man, a lot of this is bullshit, you know. A lot of these travellers do call out videos, and that is the natural way.
But I don't know if it's because the some that I've seen, you know, as obviously a non-gypsy, non-traveller, when you see it, you don't know whether it's people just, because you get people playing up for social media, but you don't know whether it's actually a real call out thing or whether it's just a bit of banter, you know.
Yeah. So where I was going with that, Terry, you've spoke to a lot of criminals in your life. Clearly, it's a Criminal Connection podcast. Yeah, they're not going to go and do a call-out video and tell their enemy what they're going to do to them next before they go and shoot them, are they? Right. Realistically. So a lot of these travellers in these videos these days that saying they're going to do this, that, the other, it's all bullshit, man. A lot of it's just coming from a cowardly place. Right. You know, you're afraid to do something. You're not game enough. And you're trying to save face. Right. That's what I see. I've been involved in a couple of feuds myself. And, you know, people being very loud-mouthed, you know.
Because we spoke earlier about obviously music, and one of the things obviously with that sort of grime, drill, rap community is a lot of the artists were going out committing crimes, and a lot of them were then singing and rapping about shooting people, stabbing people, stealing things, stealing watches, and all this sort of stuff, and then obviously putting it out online. And then once that person has been robbed or stabbed or killed, obviously the police are then able to go and arrest that person.
Well, that happened with a couple of rappers, didn't it?
Yeah. So I didn't know if it was the same thing. That's kind of what I was getting to. Whether...
There was a traveller fella called Joe Joyce Jr., a great bare knuckle fighter. He's the son of Joe Joyce Sr., who's like one of the most well-known traveller bare knuckle fighters of all time. He's still alive today. He's probably in his 70s. But his son is a well-known bare knuckle fighter, and he got into a bit of a feud. Now listen, it's not my place to say, but I believe he got attacked near his home, and he ended up hitting a guy with like a machete or something in the leg, or a slash hook, and he didn't intentionally try to kill him, but the fella ended up dying. Right. Now when he was in court, obviously the court looked over all these previous videos of arguing and fighting on the videos, and they kind of used that against them. Right. They ended up getting life in prison.
So your advice would be obviously not to put any call-out videos up, just in case you do follow through.
Listen, if I don't mind when there's real men standing there calling another man out to fight in a humble way, without disrespecting him, calling them names, you know, calling a man out with a bit of integrity. I don't mind that. But it's when you're like, hey, look, I want to fight you, and you're calling him every name under the sun. You're talking about his family, and you're talking about his wife and his children, and you know, that gets a bit too far for me.
Right. So you think that there are, you know, if there's a level of respect, then
yeah,
and you probably, I mean, look, again, I don't know, but you'd kind of imagine that if you was somebody of note or you was somebody high up, you'd have that respect anyway.
Yeah, well, Terry, look, bare knuckle fighting is about respect. Like, the way the Travellers have been for hundreds of years now is we sort our feuds and our problems out with a bare knuckle fight. It's the manliest way of doing things, you know? I've got a problem with you, Terry. Instead of us calling each other names or going to shoot each other, look, we'll have a fight.
Okay, where are we going to fight? Where are we going to fight? Let's have a call out now. Let's have it.
You know, but that's the best way to handle a situation in our community. That's the most respectful way. Like most of my opponents all my opponents I fought in bare knuckle in the travel community, I'm friends with them today. There's a respect there, you know. A couple of them were hard fights, but regardless whether they were hard or not, you give a respect to a man that comes out and fights you. And I believe that's the way it should be, Terry. You know,
I suppose really it clears the air, right? Because you know, if you've got a problem with somebody, rather than going around bad-mouthing them, they're bad-mouthing you.
Yeah.
You just meet up and go, this is my problem. And they can either go, and is it always a fight? Or can sometimes they apologise and say, look, I didn't mean to upset you or whatever? Or is it always just having a
Nah, it's not always a fight, Terry. I've been in multiple arguments, man. And I'd be, listen, these days, like I'm 28 now, of course I'm young, but towards maybe when I was 18, I was very feisty, you know what I mean? 19, 20, 21. Now today, man, if I had an argument with a fella and he was open and honest and apologised to me, I'd very happily take that apology rather than have a fight with him. Right. Because at the end of the day, look, it's cool to have a fight, but if a man's going to apologise to you, you got to respect that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So when you was on this this traveller site, and obviously you essentially, like you said, got chased off it because you was having the feud. What was the feud over, or was it just because the families were at war?
Terry, you wouldn't believe it. So I was a kid, and my cousin Jimmy gave me a push bike, and my cousin Jimmy gave me a push bike, and one of the other family members accused us of robbing the push bike, and got it all wrong. The bike wasn't robbed; it was the same bike as theirs that was robbed, but this was a different bike. Right. It was proven later on out, and that just escalated into a gigantic situation. Because I was a kid and the bike got taken off me as a 3-year-old, and an adult came up and just dragged me off a bike. You know, it was a big thing. And that just escalated a huge feud, man. Wow. Like something so minuscule, like, you know, it went on for years.
And then when you sort of moved from there, where did you go from there?
So that was Belcamp Lane, located across from Belcamp. Right. Belcamp is another estate, which is 5 minutes from Darndale. So we just located 5-10 minutes down the road to the other Belcamp Lane, which is located across from Darndale. So literally 10 minutes down the road.
And Darndale's a happy place, isn't it?
Darndale is a beautiful place. I'll tell you something about Darndale. Look, it's one of the roughest places in Dublin, of course. There's shootings, there's stabbing, there's whatever, you name it, fights all the time, there's rob cars, it's as mad as they come, but there is some good people in Darndale also.
Yeah, of course.
As there is in every council estate area, you know what I mean? There's I love it personally. I'm very proud of Darndale. I'm very proud of being a traveller and being from Darndale. I always talk about it, you know, on my social media or anything I'm working on. I'm trying to shine a positive light on it, Terry. Because there's some good people there that's actually struggling, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's a crazy place at the one time to grow up, that's for sure.
What was the craziest shit you've seen when you was there?
Well, Terry, Jesus, there's
I'll give us your top 10.
Okay, I'll try to break it down. So, when I was 12 years old, I told this story before. When I was 12 years old, I was sitting at a corner. Now, it was about 10, 11 o'clock at night, but I remember about 8 o'clock, my mother kept ringing me, you know, and telling me to come in home, and I was like, just give me a minute, I'm only at the corner with the boys, and blah, blah, blah. So I was at a corner with my mate Darren, and Bubbles was the other guy's name. And we were sitting there about 11 o'clock at night. Now, 12 years old in an estate like this at night, you shouldn't really be out, but anyway, I was. A man turned the corner with a balaclava on him and a handgun and put a handgun to the three of our heads and robbed us. Now, me being a stupid kid, I had a couple of things on me and I refused to give them to him. Today, as an adult, I would never refuse.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why I did it. But he robbed me 2 friends anyway and put a gun to my head. Very frightening thing at 12 years old. Like, I didn't even fully understand guns at that age, to be honest with you.
Would you say it was character building or?
It was definitely character
You think
building.
you had hard? You thought you had hard growing up as a kid? I had guns pointing at me. I was robbed with many balaclavas.
Yeah, like at 12 years old, Terry, when you just don't even understand what guns are, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I just remember him leaving, but a couple of days later, let's just say he got a hiding to for it.
Right.
You know, my brother got him and left him in a hospitalised situation.
Was
anyway.
was it a real gun or was it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. The guy was an addict. He was a addict.
Because you're, again, I don't know much about the sort of Irish way of life, but my understanding was in Ireland, obviously the IRA, even though they say they're disbanded and they're everything's peaceful now, they obviously still exist, and they don't do drugs. They really come down heavily on anybody doing it. So is that still the case, or is it rife in Ireland now, the drugs?
The drugs are everywhere, Terry.
Wow.
The drugs are everywhere. Like, if you look a good few years back when I was growing up as a teenager, I think the IRA were kind of a bit rampant around Dublin at that time. There was a lot going on. Not really my place to say because I was a kid myself, so I wasn't that involved.
Yeah.
But these days, I don't hear really much from the IRA. Drugs are rampant, man, everywhere. Everywhere.
Because it's funny. Like, I was actually saying this to my son the other day. When I used to go out,
Yeah.
like, obviously I'm a little bit older than you, but when I used to go out, in the 90s and the 2000s, if you went to a club or you went to a rave, you would see people that were obviously on drugs. But now it seems like even if you go in a restaurant, people are on drugs. If you go into a bar, people are on drugs, and it's like it just seems like it's everywhere.
I feel like every second man is on cocaine.
Yeah,
Like, it's like that.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, honest to God, man. Like, I know people. Like, I have a friend of mine.
do you have a little blast before you get in the ring or not?
Of course I do. No, I'm trying to stay.
I'm joking,
I'm trying to
I'm
stay clean these days. But I actually have a friend of mine, and I was in a taxi with him one night. Now, I don't see him regularly. We go out from time to time, and he was on the bag, and he jumps out of the taxi to grab a pizza out of Apache Pizza, and jumps back in, was eating the pizza while being on the bag. Like, what the fuck is that all about? Like, that's how far this is. Like,
Wow.
that can bring him, man. Like, I brought it up because you were speaking about a restaurant. Like, that's.
I mean, it is mad. I mean, but when I sort of look around, and I've had this conversation with a couple of people. For me, it's sort of like, because it's so rife now, I sort of wonder why the government don't look at somehow controlling it, regulating it, legalizing it. Do you know what I mean? Because people are taking it anyway.
I don't know. Maybe because it's so rampant in the right areas for the government.
Right.
Maybe it brings the crime rate up. Maybe that works for them. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Right,
but
okay.
Maybe they're the reasons.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into a big conversation about that, but
Yeah.
I
mean, was that estate riddled with addicts then? Was there a lot of...
Yeah, still is today, Terry. Still is today. Like,
Right.
like I'll just live right there. So there's actually a methadone centre just 30 seconds down the road.
Because I know in Scotland they had a massive problem with heroin. Is that the same in Ireland? That's
Crack.
Crack, wow.
Crack maybe the last 6-7 years is just, they still take heroin too. You see, the thing is, if you're a proper crack addict, you need heroin to come down. Like, you need to come down at some
It
stage.
just sounds so much fun.
Yeah. Like,
I'm just going to buy some crack and then I have some... So I go to sleep.
You see, it might go for 3 or 4 days, but eventually you're going to just fall off. You got to come down. So the heroin works hand in hand with crack.
Wow.
That's for sure. Like, But, yeah, we've a methadone clinic basically on our lane. So I see Alex going in all the time. And just right faces, man, there's crack being sold.
For you, though, growing up and sort of having these experiences, seeing these sort of like drug addicts robbing you at gunpoint, seeing these people queuing up to go into this methadone treatment centre, did it sort of make you never ever want to go down that path, because it always scared me. Like when I saw people, you know, because I lived on an estate that were drugs got hold of them, even in the rave scene, get hold of people and you see them like ruin their lives, they kill themselves or they die of an overdose, and you sort of just think, you know, that isn't something that I want to ever go into, because I don't want that to happen. You know, I mean, my dad was a big drinker. He was an alcoholic, right? And I think as a kid seeing that, even if I drink now, I'll have a couple of drinks, but I will never go nuts. You know what I mean? You won't see me drinking bottles and bottles of whiskey or rum or anything like that. I'll have a couple and that's me. You know what I mean? But I saw what it did, and it always made me very. That's not the way, you know.
Listen, I totally understand where you're coming from. My father was a drinker and an addict as well. He was on medication and stuff. He was a diagnosed schizophrenic and bipolar. He was in and out of mental institutions constantly. He ended up committing suicide.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And because of that, that's always steered me away from tablets and medication and stuff. That was definitely a thing I was never going to do, was take tablets or any sort of medication because of that, because of what way his mind went, you know. He always had a bit of a problem mentally, but I believe the medication made him even a lot worse, you know. So I understand where you're coming from. That was definitely a thing I steered away from because of my father.
Yeah. I think if you get, and this has happened quite a lot, you know, like one of their family members had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But they said, no, he's got dementia or Parkinson's. So they misdiagnosed him.
Yep.
And gave him the wrong drugs. And because they gave him the wrong drugs, made him worse. And obviously it's very difficult because you can't just do a test and say, oh, yeah, you've got that. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, look at your symptoms and go, well, the book says you got this, so have these drugs, you know. And, I mean, there's a friend of mine who practices... sort of the alternative medicines, and he's actually got a machine that he actually wires people up to, and he actually tests them and their bodies and see what they need, and then he can basically recommend them these sort of pills and potions. And I actually said to him, I didn't know why the NHS or whatever the health services in Ireland would do something like this, because then you can correctly treat people and what they need, because they know if you're allergic to penicillin, they know if you know, whatever it is. But he just said that that's not what they do.
Terry, listen, look, the elites, it's all about the money, man. You know what I mean? The government, they're earning money off people being ill. Right. You know what I mean? Like, look at cancer. You're telling me they can't treat cancer at this stage, but all the shit they're coming out with, they're earning money off the ill people, man. Without sick people, they're not earning trillions a year, years to trillions of dollars or euros or pounds a year through the health system. You know, they're earning money off the sick. That's my opinion personally. Yeah. You know?
And obviously you're growing up, you've had to move, and you're now in this Darndale estate. When did you actually start fighting? Did you start sort of just fighting on the street, or?
Oh yeah, man. So like, I started fighting on the street when I was like super young. Like in school when I was 6, 7 years old, I was fighting every day. Every single day, because when we moved into Darndale, now Darndale's not like this now, but when we moved into Darndale, I think we were probably like maybe the second traveller family moving in, and I was only a kid, and kids can be very ignorant, you know, and constant discrimination every single day. Right. Everything was this traveller, pikey, knacker, whatever, you name it. It was a constant thing. Kids will do that, you know. Some kids are just very ignorant.
Do you know what's weird? Like when I grew up in the 70s, you know, it was down to ignorance, because nobody knew anything about anybody. Do you know what I mean? So if you wasn't British and you know, if you spoke differently, if you had a different skin colour, or if you was, you know, Irish or French or Spanish or whatever, you know, everybody would focus on that. And you know, I think everybody got terrorised for being different.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying when I speak on ignorance, because some of the people who were discriminating against me in school are friends of mine today. They were kids. They didn't know. They were ignorant to it. They didn't know what a traveller meant. You know what I mean? So I was constantly in fights there, Terry. And then that brought into my teenage years. And obviously, as you're becoming a teenager, fights become a little bit more serious. Because I started boxing when I was 9 then. So I started, by the time I hit 12 or 13, I started really knowing how to fight. Yeah. So every time I was in a fight, I was winning them, and winning them convincingly, and hurting people on the streets. Like, and I was very violent, as I said, you know, having to leave your own campsite as a 3-year-old and knowing later on your family was bullied out of it, that makes you very violent and angry. And losing my father at a young age to addiction and growing up in a place like this, and I grew up with my two brothers and my mother was just an amazing person. And look, life, my mother got us everything we needed, but life was financially a struggle, mentally a struggle, physically a struggle.
Well, without your dad, obviously, being the breadwinner, and that probably put a lot of pressure on your mum, not just to be a mother, but to, provide.
An unbelievable amount of pressure on my mother. An unbelievable amount of pressure. But oh my God, she was a mother and father in one, man. She,
was she out there boxing as well?
Funny enough, when I was younger, I see my mother come in with a broken nose after having a fight with a woman.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just the Traveller men, it's the Traveller women as well.
Well, it wasn't really a bare knuckle fight now, it's more of just a...
Because I always, every time I've ever sort of had I've been to any sort of Traveller parties or weddings or events, I've always, the women always look immaculate. They've always, makeup's done, they've always got beautiful dresses, and the guys always look, everyone sort of makes an effort. But I've never actually seen the girls fight, so I didn't know if that was a thing.
Yeah, well, look, it's one thing going to a wedding, and then it's one thing living in a rough housing estate or campsite where we lived. Living that real gritty life. And as I said, financially unstable, things were hard. My father wasn't around, and constant fighting with other families. Things are very, very different.
Did she get a job, or did she?
Yeah, my mother worked for a couple of years on and off. Yeah, man, she looked after us very well, Terry. She guided us in the right direction. She tried to steer us away from all the bad as much as she could, at least. But look, you can be the best parent in the world, but when you have to raise three young fellas, they're gonna try and learn about things, and they're gonna see people do things, and they're gonna fall into places, even if you do your best to keep them away from it. But I think what my mother did give us and give myself is, she gave me morals and integrity, and I kind of live by that code, and manners and stuff like that. So I got some great things from my mother, and she done a lot for us, you know what I mean? Amazing. But unfortunately, I guess at one stage I kind of became a product of my own environment where I grew up in, you know what I mean?
Was that because you saw what the older kids were doing and you thought, I want some of that?
Yeah, Terry, as I said, talking about growing up when I was like, let's say, bring it to maybe when I was 16, 17 now, I start seeing my cousins getting cars, getting their first cars to drive, getting their licenses, working with their fathers. And obviously I hadn't had a father there, so I wasn't working, and I had no money to buy a car. And oh man, it was just stressful and very insecure at that age. You know what I mean? When you're that age, you're like everything. You're so insecure about everything.
But if they're doing it, you want to at least be on...
I want to at least be on that level. I don't want to feel like the odd one out. I've 50, 60 first cousins, and I'm seeing every one of them on the same level, and I'm under there. And it just, as a man, I don't care today. Like, I'll work on me. I do me. That's fine. When you're a kid, you're so insecure. So that was a big thing for me, Terry. And then basically, man, what happened is the stress got to me. I just didn't know what to do. And as I said, I was growing up in Darndale. Things were mad. We're constantly just around mad stuff, seeing drug dealing happening. One day I said to myself, I'm just going to get a bit of weed. Just a small bit of weed. Sell a couple of 25 bags just to get something, to have a couple of £100 a week.
So so was you El Paco then, or was you El Patrick then?
So look, then.
So you've got like Pablo Escobar, but you were El Patrick with a weed.
I love it. But yeah, man, I get into it's just petty stuff, really. Just selling a couple of bags of weed here and there, you know what I mean?
But then, once you start doing that, and then you start thinking, well, actually, this is quite easy. You've got...
It was simple, man. Like, I was out of school at the time as well. I left school when I was 15. So I was just around every day, just selling bags of weed, getting anywhere from 100 to 200 quid a day profit for myself at 16, 17 years old. So it was great money to me.
Well, it's better than doing a paper round, right?
And I actually had a friend doing a paper round, and I think he was on about 120 a week. You know what I mean? So that was the difference. But yeah, man. And then that led into, when you get into the selling drugs, man, there's always a gateway to something else, whether you're taking them or selling them. You see one fella talking about cocaine, and you see how much money he's earning from that towards what you're earning from this, and it's like, if I'm on the street here doing this anyway, why am I not doing this? Right. So
You might as well get a long coat and you open it up and you got it.
There's always a natural progression.
Right. And did you have any? Did you get a little crew? So there was a few of you, or was it?
Yeah, man. So there was a gang of us. Really, like there was probably 5 or 6 of us. We're all kind of dealers. Now there was no one in my family out of my first cousins or anything, or my uncles was dealers or anything like it. Nobody did. Right. Like in my family, I was probably the first. Apart from a different generation beforehand, but currently at that time there was no one even selling drugs. But yeah, man, I just started getting into selling coke with a couple of friends of mine at Darndale. They were all dealers and we were all kind of doing it together, man, and we were just working off each other, you know what I mean? And I think it got to a point when I was about 18 or 19 where I really fell hard into that life, man. You know, stress got involved. I started earning a couple of thousand a week now at this stage, and I was partying. Then I got introduced to drugs myself, you know, and fell out of love with training and things like that, and start doing a bit of coke, a bit of ecstasy, partying. I was going out on a Friday, not coming back till Monday. My mother was stressed out of her head looking for me everywhere, man. And once I got involved with that, I started seeing the women, and you know, as a young fella, you know, you can be quite vain when you're earning money and stuff, and you just want to feel like a king. And you're out partying every weekend, you're spending thousands of euros, you're taking drugs, and you're just involved in that mad life. And then that puts you back, Terry, to like, you know, you're spending most of your money then, you're leaving yourself in a bad position. You know, you should have this amount of cash at the end of the week to buy this, but now you don't. And then now you're going searching for money, you know. So then that brought me down to somewhere else. I start going out robbing, you know. I start going out off every night robbing vans, you know, breaking into vans, taking people's belongings, which I'm not proud of at all. I never will be, but stress and the pressures I put myself under through addiction and stuff like that, and that's where that led me there, you know. And then I start getting back on top of things, and I had a couple of guys working for me. Like I'll give you an example. So in my campsite, obviously my mother was very against drugs, like, hated them.
Did she know or not?
She didn't know for a couple of years.
Right.
I kept it very hidden, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She definitely didn't know when I was selling weed anyway.
Right, okay.
There wasn't enough money.
But I didn't know if you were sort of coming in at, you know, sort of 6 a.m. You was all sort of mangled up, and
no.
Your mum sort of going, "Are you okay?" And you're going, "Yeah, I'm going to bed."
Yeah, so I had look, I was very aware of a Friday night. I just said to my mother, "Look, I'm heading out with the boys." You know what I mean? Sleeping in one of the boys' houses. So if I was gone for a day or two, she'd always have an inkling of an idea. But look, I'd get away with it to a degree. Right. But yeah, man. So yeah, it just started getting mad. So my mother was starting to get suspicious of me now at this stage. So I had to get 2 people in working with me. And so I was that busy for Friday night, Terry. You know, the phone calls was coming in constantly. I couldn't go in and out of the campsite every second in front of my mother. You know what I mean? It's so suspicious.
Where you going now?
Where you going now? Like, you've had to been out here 75 times.
Right.
But so I'd send one fella out. He'd go and meet somebody, and I'd make him wait around for about 20, 30 minutes outside to meet this guy, that guy, and then I'd have the other fella going in the opposite direction to go meet this fella, that fella, and wait out there for about 30 minutes to keep the suspicion away from myself. You know what I mean?
Did you ever have any sort of run-ins with the police on that, or did you manage to sort of?
A couple of run-ins with the police, Terry. A couple of close calls.
They're called the Garda.
The Garda.
Right,
I still call them the police, but in Dublin they call them the Garda, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Couple of run-ins with the police, couple of raids, things like that. Not the major. They never picked me up on anything anyway.
I never got your stash.
Never got my stash. And they never get it out because it's not there anymore. I'm retired.
Right.
Yeah, Terry. So just, look, being involved in that whole drug thing and that robbing and that just that bad karma, the negative energy. When you're involved in a negative lifestyle like that, man, all it brings is bad things.
Right.
You know, and you might be the best person. Like, you might be a legitimately good person and come from good stock, good family, good mother, whatever. But if you get involved in something like that, man, it can just drag you down. You know, it can put you under so much stress and anxiety. And, you know, sometimes you feel like there's nowhere to go. There's no way out. How to get out of this situation I'm about to put myself in. And they're almost willing to do anything just to get rid of that pressure. You know, so that's where I was. So I was constantly like, you know, being owed bills, me owing bills myself for drugs, then having to go and chase after people that owed me bills. I'd be knocking at people's doors with hammers. Right. I'd get one of my workers there. So I had one guy.
Well, you was actually hitting the door with a hammer. You were knocking the door.
I'd show up,
do you want the hammer?
I'd show up to a door, knock at the door. If they didn't answer, I'd kick the door in. I'd walk in with a lump hammer.
Wow.
That's what I would do.
I take you had no problem in getting paid.
Yeah, I'd get paid then. A lot of the time, they probably wouldn't even be there.
Right.
I'd look for the most valuable thing and leave.
Right.
But like that was the pressure, man. That was the pressure I put myself under. Like actually been in a situation like that. I had a friend of mine working with me, and he was my debt collector, right? He was a madman. When I talk about the lump hammer, that was his signature move. Right. So he would go around Darndale or whatever area was owed money, and he would just go straight in, bang, 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 hitting people raps of lump hammers to collect money off them. Like, he was very violent, but like I don't condone that. Like, but he was very violent at the time, and he would get the money every time.
Right.
You know, there's no point lying about it.
I suppose once you've been hit with that lump hammer more than once, you even if you haven't got the money, you find it, right?
Yeah, believe me. Then I had a friend of mine, another friend of mine who was a dealer as well, and he was a lovely fella, you know. He wasn't violent. He was never in arguments, but he just sold a bit of drugs, and he was all big money, you know, 5, 10, 15K and stuff like that. So because me and him were close friends, and he hadn't really got the steel to go and get that money that he was owed, you know what I mean? He just wasn't about that life. He'd hit me up to collect the money from, so we'd work out a little thing, you know, 50% deal. If I collect the bills, I own 50% of the money. So then I'd go and collect them bills myself. So yeah, that was the life, Terry. It was a crazy life, man. Just brings you into a lot of trouble, man. You're arguing with different gangsters. You're in the wrong place. You always seem to be in the wrong places. You know what I mean? Where something bad can happen. Like, I was in the wrong places so many times because of it. Shootings, like, just stand at the corner with a couple of people doing a few bits and pieces, and someone comes over the field with a double-barreled shotgun just laying into us. Wow. That happened. We were stupid enough to be standing at the same corner 2 nights in a row, and the same thing happened. A man came over the field with a shotgun shooting at us.
Was that a rival dealer, or was that someone to get you out of the...
No, it was a local lad in the area. Just was in an argument with some other fella. None of them were even dealers, I believe. But the local lad I'm speaking about was meant to be with us, but he actually wasn't. But the fella still came over with a shotgun shoot anyway, thinking he was there. Wow. So stuff like that, when you're involved in that life, man, you're just going to be in a bad place all the time. You're in a negative mindset. There's always negative energy. You know what I mean?
I mean, with the shooting, did anybody actually get killed? Or was there any?
Oh yeah, man. A couple of my friends got killed. So I had my friend Jordo, very, very good friend of mine. So I'll tell you a quick little story here, Terry. You know, to give a little bit of context with.
Yeah.
So just over 5 years ago, my grandfather, Paddy Ward, was very ill with cancer. I became his carer, you know, me, my brother John, and obviously the family as well. But I was sleeping in with him most nights. So it's hard looking at your grandfather. He was almost a father figure in a way, you know, because
you lost your father, yeah.
Because I lost my father at a young age, and he always lived right next to me. So we were very close in that sense. Anyway, you know, it's stressful seeing him every night sick, terminally ill with cancer, and you have to look at that. And I was only young at the time, Terry. I must have been 22, yeah. 21 to 23, you know, by the time he died. And so one morning, Terry jumps up early, and I used to go for walks, you know, to clear the head. So I got up and I put my earphones in, and I remember walking out my gate, and I said to myself, will I take a left? Left brings me to Clear Hall Shopping Centre, or will I take a right into Darndale? And I said, I'll take a right into Darndale, just walk up to the shop. So I took a right, and as it did, I walked up by Darndale School, and I gets a phone call, and who was it? Only my mate Jordo. Now I haven't seen my mate Jordo in about 3-4 months. He was basically on the run. There was meant to be a hit out in his head. So I haven't seen him in a couple of months. I answered the phone and said, Jordo, what's up, man? He said, Paco, I'm behind you. So I looked behind me, there he was. And I said, what are you doing here, man? You're meant to be hiding, you know what I mean? There's someone meant to be killing this fella. And everyone knows, told him to get out of the area, me included. I said, you're meant to be hiding. He said, no, don't worry about that. So I get down to him. I said, what's the crack? What are you doing here? And he says, look, I sorted things out. He told me I'm okay to come back and blah, blah, blah. I gave him a hug. He was with his kid, a 4-week-old kid, in the pram. And he said to me, where are you going? I said, I'm going up to the shop. So we took a walk up to the shop, but we had to walk through a church lane to go to the shop. But Terry, as we took the right into the church lane, there was nobody out. It was early in the morning. I looked over to the left, and there was a man on a push bike. And I just had that thing in my mind. I says, this man's just so suspicious.
But you normally get a sixth sense, don't you?
Yeah, you normally get a sense. It was early in the morning. He had gloves on him. He was on a push bike. He had a hat on him. And he was steering us over from a distance. And obviously Jordo had a hit on his head. So obviously I'm adding 2 and 2 together here. I says to Jordo, I says, man, listen, I said, I think that could be a fella looking for you. He said to me, nah, man, trust me, that's not at all. So we're going through the church lane. And as we're going through, there's a little left you can take into the church. I said to Jordo, listen, let's take a left into the church here, just to be safe here. He says, nah, fuck that, man. He said, trust me, that's all right. I said, and I begged him, Terry. I genuinely begged him. I said, Jordo, please, man, let's go into the church just to be safe here. I said, I'm telling you, that's suspicious, man. He wouldn't listen to me. So we went past the turn, and out of the blue, bang, bang, here's 2 gunshots, shot at us. We turned around, but as quick as we turned around him, he got to us in the push bike. And put a gun immediately to my head and says to me, if you move, I'm going to blow your head off. That was a crazy thing, man, because, you know, I've often heard the cliche saying, you know, your life flashes before you, you know, when you're about to die. Or that didn't exactly happen to me, Terry, but what happened was I remember saying to myself, maybe this is my own ego here, but I remember saying to myself, I don't want to be another victim here. Like, this isn't directly involved me and I'm going to be killed for nothing. I remember saying, like, I don't want to be known as the fella who got killed for no reason, you know, the poor fella that got killed by an accident. I just remember thinking, that's not how I want to die.
I thought you'd be sitting there thinking, I knew I should have turned left. I should have turned left.
Oh, I'm telling you, of course, man, of course. But
do you know something? I've been in a similar situation when I was doing the clubs, and similar to what you said, you don't. The life doesn't flash before you.
Yeah.
But I did actually think, if you do pull that trigger, you better make sure you get me, because I am going to fucking come back. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
I did actually think that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But luckily, he just walked away. But what happened with you? So the guy...
Yeah, so after he'd done that, man, before I knew it, look, he turned around and he aimed the gun at my friend Jordo. Now, remember, there's a 4-week-old kid in the pram here. So my friend Jordo's roaring to him saying, he said, please don't kill me in front of me, kid. Please don't kill me in front of me, kid. And the man is adamant he's going to shoot him here. So my friend Jordo puts his whole body around the pram to try and protect the pram and leaves his back open to be shot. And he got shot 5 times. Wow. Murdered there and then. As soon as he killed him, he turned around with the gun to me. What I believe was trying to kill the witness. And I ran for the church, got through the doors, and as I did, he chased me to the doors and just aimed the gun in on top of the doors, but couldn't get me. Right. And
did he run out of bullets, or was
no? He just didn't shoot in the door. Thank God. Right. There was a lot of women working, in the centre, you know, in the church. Loads of women there, so right. I jumped over the counter.
But you got a good look at the fella.
Listen, I seen nothing. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I see nothing, and the guy got charged anyway, Terry. The guy got charged. Nothing to do with me. I got taken in on question for 3 days.
The thing is, if you do something like that in broad daylight, especially with the way things are, I think there's I don't know if it's the same in Ireland, but I know in England there's a 97% conviction rate for murder. In America, I think it's like 7 or 8%. I don't know if that's similar to Ireland.
I doubt it's that high in Ireland, but he done it in broad daylight with no balaclava on. So you didn't need a witness for that. You know what I mean?
Someone's going to see him.
It was his own wrongdoing, really. Cameras all over the place, Terry. But look, he got done. He got done in for that anyway. But yeah, my mate Jordo got killed, man. It was that was a ferocious death, man. Right in front of you, you know.
How did that make you feel, Paco? Because that must have been, you know, fucking horrendous. Like seeing your mate murdered in front of his fucking child. You know, like, I mean, it's
hard to explain to you, Terry. So, I'll tell you what happened just after that, and you'll have a little bit of an understanding of how I felt and what I was just going through. So I remember I got home that day and was panicking very badly. You know, an uncle of mine had a CBD vape or something like that, and he gave me to try and help me calm down. Long story short, detectives were looking for me everywhere to bring me in for questioning. You know, because of course I was there. My head wasn't in the right place, man. I just couldn't imagine going in for questions. Everybody kept telling me you get held in for 72 hours. And I was thinking, how can I do 72 hours being questioned? I'm all over the place here in my own mind, you know. But eventually the detectives came down. I went in. I was in there for 3 days solid, 72 hours, getting questioned 3 times a day. This was just after seeing the killing as well. It was only 2 days later. Getting questioned 3 times a day for 2 hours each time. And the detectives were so pissed off at me because, of course, I went no comment all the way. Listen, of course, he's my friend and I love him.
Right.
But I ain't about that. You know what I mean? I was raised differently. I can't speak. It's just the way we are, unfortunately. But because I went no commentary, the day they left me out, and remember, Terry, at the one time, my grandfather's terminally ill with cancer, okay?
Right.
And we just got news before I went into the police station that he's a couple of days left to live. And my friend just died at the one time. So I get released after the 72-hour question, and straight away, they didn't even let me out the door. They rearrested me on the spot for a warrant dating back 5 years previous that I had.
Right.
Right? Held me in for one more night, brought me to court the next morning. In court, I got remanded in custody to prison.
Wow.
Only a couple of days previous, my friend was murdered in front of me, and I just got the news my grandfather had a couple of days left to live. And I just got remanded in custody to prison.
They say it comes in threes, right?
Absolutely. That was the tree, you know. My first day in prison, my first night in prison, I didn't give a fuck about going to prison. That was the least of my concerns, you know what I mean? In that moment, like, all I kept thinking was, I'm going to miss my grandfather's funeral. I'm going to miss his death. I just witnessed my friend being murdered. Terry, to be honest, I can't fully tell you exactly what I was thinking. Your emotions are just, the rent's so high at this stage, man. But,
well, I mean, you know, people that I know who've had similar traumas, they've wanted to kill themselves. They've wanted to kill everybody around them. You know, they feel like life's not worth, you know, so they've got no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no sort of self-control. It's like, whatever, you know, if someone bumped into you, you'd fucking fill them in, but you'd probably go over the top and probably kill them, and then you'd end up never coming out of jail. Do you know what I mean? So when you're in that mindset,
you want to break out some sort of way when you go through a lot of trauma. But I was in the prison basically for a week. My grandfather survived while I was in the prison. 2 days after I got out, he died. He died with cancer. He died in our campsite. It was his wish to die at home.
Do you know what's mad, right? And I don't know if you believe in this, but sometimes when people are sick, because you said you had that strong bond where he was like your father figure, and you was obviously close, and he would have known that you was away, and you know, he could have actually held on to say goodbye.
That's very possible.
You come out of jail, and then 2 days later he's gone. Do you know what I mean? So
I want to say a huge thanks to our sponsors, Fragrance du Bois. Now, for those of you that don't know about Fragrance du Bois, where have you been? It is one of the leading luxury fragrances, only available in Harrods, Selfridges and Neiman Marcus in New York. They've got so many different fragrances for men, for women. All of the fragrances are unisex, so make sure you get involved and sample the delights of Fragrance du Bois. For all the Criminal Connection podcast crew, we've got a special discount for you. 10% off. All you need to do when you click on the link below and choose your luxury fragrance is to put in CCPOD10 for the 10% discount.
You know, Terry, that's a great point. That's a great point. And just on another matter, because you're reminding me of something there. You're bang on about that, because I was in probation one day in town, you know, for driving offences. I took a police chase. Anyway, long story short, I had to go through a probation thing for a couple of months, and I get a phone call off my brother Joe, and he says to me, Nana is in hospital. So our grandmother, we used to call her Nana. Nana's in hospital, looks like she's going to die. Now, we got this phone call about 20 times about my Nana. She was always very ill, you know. And I said, are you sure? Something told me there and then, like, this is the time.
Right.
So I rushed, I jumped in a taxi. And he says to me that Nana's waiting. She's trying to stay awake to see her grandkids.
Wow.
She's trying to stay awake for as long as she can to see her grandkids. And I got to the hospital, Terry, and I was the last grandkid that gave her a hug while she was still awake.
Right.
And after I seen her, she couldn't hang on anymore, and she went asleep, and that was it. She died that night. So you're bang on, yeah. That just reminded me of that situation.
You know, I've actually been through that myself with family members.
Have you?
And yeah.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. About the time my grandfather, when he died, then look, life went crazy then, man. You know, whatever, however mad I was then, like whatever drugs I was taking twice as much. I guess I was like,
Went off a cliff.
I went off a cliff.
Right.
I went off a cliff. I guess I was like trying to kill myself without killing myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Didn't care what I was doing. Didn't care what I was taking. Didn't care who I was arguing with. Didn't care where I was.
Right.
Just everything went out the window. I just didn't think of anything anymore. When I was out drinking, I was taking as many drugs as I could. When I was gone for days, I was gone for as long as I could. You know, I didn't want to come home. Not too long just after that, then my cousin Mel died, my first cousin. I've got him tattooed there, Mel Ward.
Lovely.
He was my first cousin and really close to me. Very, very close to me. I remember 2 weeks before he died, he says to me, showed me a song called, I don't know if you ever heard it, Terry, it's called Catch and Release. I forget the artist's name, but it's called Catch and Release. And he says, he'd call me Packy. So he said, Packy, cousin, listen to this song. He said, don't call me soft and don't make a laugh at me. He was a buzzer, you know. and there was a few lads in the car at the time. So, and this was kind of a, a soft song. And I says, I won't. He said, listen, if I ever die, play this at my funeral. He played the song. It was a beautiful song. 2 weeks later, he died. And I got to play at his funeral. It was crazy. And then not long after that, Terry, this is all in the space of around the one time, because Daniel died. Wow. That was Mel's brother.
Wow.
And Daniel, it was only his 5-year anniversary 2 days ago. Daniel was the same age as me. He was 23 when he died. We were the same age. We done communion, confirmation, grew up together, all of that. So that was an especially hard death then again. So yeah, Terry, just in the space of that couple of years there, losing a grandmother, losing a grandfather, losing 2 first cousins. They lost my friend Jordan, got murdered in front of me. And then there was one more death. Then there was me friend Owen. We used to call him Fishy. That was his name. It's a mad name. I'll tell you a funny story about that.
Do you know what? If that was my nickname, I want to fucking change it.
Listen, I'll tell you a funny story about that, yeah? So Fishy was a madman, just a lunatic.
Right.
He just wanted to be a gangster. I'm just going to tell you that straight. This fella just wanted to be a gangster. But I'll tell you why. When he was a kid, he got bullied to death. Now, I used to see him getting brutal beatings. He got his jaw broke when he was about 11. Smashed in, kicked into the ground by a couple of fellas. And his jaw got broke and it was swinging. And that's where he got the nickname Fishy. So the Fishy name came from him being bullied and kicked into the ground.
Right.
You know? And that's where he just went mental. Wanted to be a gangster and went crazy and got involved in that gang life. And I met up with him when we were 14, 15 years old. We became good friends then for years. And I always used to try and look out for him, you know. Anyone who tried to fuck with him, Terry, I was going to smash them up. That's being honest, because I knew where he came from. I knew the life, the trauma he went through. Yeah. And I felt bad for him and I understood the trauma. And anyone to fuck with him, I just smashed him up straight up. Right. And yeah, he ended up getting shot dead then outside his house. It's only about 15 minutes down the road. And they're all in around the one time of deaths, all of them. So that just made me fucking...
I mean, do you remember that scene in Lock, Stock when the guy goes, well, everybody stop getting shot? I mean, it must have felt like that, where, like, you know, your friend's been murdered. This other guy has been, you know, and it's, you know, gangland executions, whether it's a hit or whether it's on your doorstep. Did anybody see it, or did he just come out and they just did him on his doorstep? Did him
at his outside his house.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know who done it. I don't know how many done it. Don't think anyone's charged for it, but that was sad, man.
And what happened to you after that, Paco? Did you then? I mean, at that point, was that the turning point? You just thought, fucking hell, I've lost 2 of my mates here now. They've been murdered.
I tell you what I done then, Terry. I stayed away from a lot of people, and I kind of kept to my family. But I was still selling a bit, if I'm being honest with you.
Right.
Still selling a bit, but I was looking for a way out, and I was struggling a lot, man. I was struggling so bad. I start having nightmares every night. Every night I go to sleep and I'd have the same nightmare, and I can remember it perfectly, like, because it still happens today. Don't have them as much today because I know how to control them to a degree at least. But every night I'd have a dream, and in the dream I'm getting chased by a man with a gun, and the man's just basically a shadow. He's just black, like a black shadow, you know. And he has a gun in his hand, and every night, doors very like the doors in this building, he'd chase me through multiple doors, could be 20, 30, 40 doors in this dream. And at the end of every dream, he'd get to me and put a gun to my head. But the gun would never it would never shoot, but the gun would be put to my head and I'd wake up.
Right.
I started having that dream almost every night for about 4 or 5 months straight. And I don't know if you understand that or if you've ever been through that, but it's not a normal, of course it's not a normal dream, but you don't wake up normal. You wake up, Terry, and it's like it's like
real.
you've been on the drink.
Feels
It's like it feels real for sure, but it's like you've been on the drink the night before. Your body's aching. Your body's in pain. It's like your body's just been through a lot of trauma.
There could be, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but there could be an element of PTSD about that. But also with some people that interpret dreams and talk about spiritual stuff.
Yeah,
some people say that is sometimes other forces basically showing you you're going down the wrong path, and you can either say it's bollocks or you can believe it. But
no, yeah. So I was smoking then a lot of weed as well, you know, and I started just hallucinating a lot. It got to a point, Terry, with weed where I started seeing that same figure while I was awake. One day I was in my campsite and I was awake, smoking weed, and seen that same figure run through my campsite with a handgun towards me, and I ran into my grandmother's shed at the time, and I rang my cousin Arthur. He listened to this podcast eventually, he knows the story, and I rang him and I says, there's a man trying to kill me here, and he was only with me a few minutes before this, and I told him that he ran through his site, and he was out in his site and he didn't know what he ran through it, so I think he got the gist that something was going on. He came up to me anyway, and he came into the room and he sat in the room with me for about an hour or two trying to calm me down. So I went through a bit of drug psychosis for a while, you know. Went psychotic over the weed, to be honest. Just lost the mind, man. Everything just got so dark, just so fucking dark, man. And I ended up seeing a therapist for a while.
right.
Yeah, about 18 months on and off every Thursday.
And how did that work? Did that help you?
I eventually got diagnosed with PTSD
Right.
and bipolar. How did it help me? Yeah, it helped me a lot.
Did you ever know that you were bipolar?
My family kind of always thought it, you know.
My family say that I'm autistic. They say you're autistic or you got Asperger's. You're on the They say I'm on the spectrum. So I'm like, thanks a lot. You know what I mean? I think I'm normal, but you know.
I thought you're a bit autistic too.
But you know, obviously for you with bipolar, people that I know, like Frank Bruno, the boxer, was on, and he suffers from that. And he said some days you're high, some days you're low. Is that your experience?
Listen, my wife could tell you. She could come in one day and for absolutely zero reason, I'm just not talking. I'm depressed. And 1 hour later, I could be the happiest man in the room. But when I'm happy, I'm never just happy. I'm super excited.
Right.
I'm fucking psychotic. I'm jumping around like a mental patient. I'm like, yeah, you know. Right. Like it's like I'm controlling a little better these days, but when I'm depressed, I'm suicidal almost. You know what I mean?
And what do you have to take medication for that, or is it just about getting your mind in the right?
I got given antidepressants a good few years back when I was kind of going through it, and I remember taking them for a week or two, and going back to speaking about my father with that drug thing, I was thinking about that too much, and I said I can't go down that road, and I never believe. Look, everyone for their own, Terry, but I believe drugs and medication, there's no way of them actually in long term helping you. I believe the only way long term of helping yourself is helping yourself. You know what I mean? Not taking medication or drugs. Clean eating, exercise, therapy if you want. You know, being around good people, being in a positive environment, nature, walking, you know, all of that and all of the above, you know. I believe that's the only way long term you can actually deal with problems legitimately and not fall off.
But all the people I've spoken to that have, and there's not a huge amount of them, but all the people I know who've been prescribed antidepressants have all said it's made them fucking more depressed. And you know, and then they've needed more. Do you know what I mean? So it hasn't fixed it. But what I've found, like through my life, if I ever get a moment when I'm low or down, or you know things haven't gone right, I think it's very easy to go, oh fucking hell, you know, and talk yourself into more shit.
Yes.
And I think sometimes, and this does sound like a load of sort of happy clappy wanky bollocks, yeah, but it works, right? And I think you have to sometimes, if you feel yourself getting depressed, or you feel yourself going into that sort of, oh, fucking hell, you know, why me thing, you have to literally hold your head up high and say, I'm joy, I'm happy, and actually look around you and think, you know, things ain't actually that bad.
Appreciate things.
Because you know, we take for granted that we got clothes on, right? We take for granted that we have phones. We take for granted that we've got food, that we've got water, you know what I mean? We take all this stuff for granted, right? Some people haven't got anything. Some people are dying of cancer, you know. There's always going to be somebody 10 times worse off than you are, and 10 times better than you are. Do you know what I mean? But I think
So right, man,
wherever
yeah.
you are, you have to, and it's so easy to say it and harder to do it. But I think if you have that positive, because when I lived on a council estate, we had no money. We lived in a council flat. You know, I was on a dole, I had nothing.
Yeah.
Right? But I wanted to get off the estate, and I was positive, and I was like, I'm going to get off the estate. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know I was going to do this 10 months ago. Do you know what I mean? So you never know what's, and I think you have to push it out and say that you want to do something. And I honestly believe once you put your mind to it, anything is possible.
Terry, you're so right. I was only speaking to a taxi driver in London yesterday, actually.
The old black cabbies, they're great, aren't they?
Yeah, he was listen, he was a lovely fella. He was a Muslim man, yeah. He was a lovely, genuine, humble human being. Really nice guy. And I happened to be in the taxi for about 40 minutes, so we talked for a while. But we were just speaking about that, man, you know, gratitude and, you know, appreciating things. And you're absolutely right about everything you're saying, man. And you see people, I'll say something here. So you see people, where I come from, a lot of the people that are depressed are usually on medication, drinking, taking drugs. I'm not saying all of them, but to me, what looks to be the majority of the people who are suffering from depression and maybe suicidal thoughts or whatever are taking some form of medication. Well, they're only a quick, short dopamine hit, but over time, they're going to fog your brain.
Yeah.
And they're actually going to kill brain cells. They're going to make you depressed. There's only one way of getting out of it. It's positivity. It's sobriety. At least sobriety to a degree. As I said, exercise, all of that stuff. And a positive attitude. And you're talking about wanting to get out of, you talked about getting out of the estate. And you can be anything you want to be. So we spoke about earlier yesterday in the taxi that, look, if you're aiming for the stars and you don't reach the stars, you might reach something up there though. You know, you might reach that building up there that you never thought you could get into. And you walk through the door one day.
I'm always aim for like things you can't reach.
Yeah.
And then if you get just there, you've still done better than everyone else. So it doesn't matter.
Well, Terry, if you look at it like this, man, I was basically almost trying to kill myself every weekend with drugs because I was so fucked up over all them debts I spoke about and in a dark place, man, and not knowing where it could go. And yeah, man, I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. And you know, just like that, your life can change. Like, I'll give you a good example. So, my mother's 1 year anniversary is on August the 6th.
Right.
Next week. My mother suffered from cancer for 18 months. Me and my brothers kind of more or less nursed her at home, you know.
Right.
She hates hospitals. And her father, who was my grandfather, died at home with cancer, who I spoke about. And listen, if she was ever going to die, she always said she wants to die at home like her father. She was a real daddy's girl as well, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we nursed her at home and we went through trauma after trauma with that situation. Now, and I'm not here to speak about my own problems here with this because it was more difficult to see my mother in them. But to see her mother like that every day, man, suffering and pain. And I'd be up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, rubbing her back, rubbing her down, hugging her, trying to motivate her, you know. Sometimes she'd lose hope and, you know, you try to pick her back up again and you'd be rubbing pain creams on her and you'd be giving her medication and, oh man, it's like at one stage I think she went like 13 months without eating a meal.
Wow.
At home. Without eating a meal, she went 13 months. She was like a woman of like 17 stone.
Wow.
Like she was a heavy woman, my mother, you know. And she went down to probably, I don't know, 6 stone, 5 stone, I don't know. Crazy weight loss, like within that 13 months. And it was It was unbelievable, man. It was just everything that I went through, which I spoke about it already, is still not even as bad as what I've seen with my mother, because it's all I had. To me, it was everything, you know. My mother was everything to me, you know. But as I was getting closer to the death, Terry, I was just thinking to myself, you know, is this going to happen? Like, you know, sometimes you can be in denial or just not wanting to face it, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you know, losing. Some people are close to their dads, but I think most boys are closer to their mums, and losing your mum is going to be the hardest thing in the world.
yeah, man, it is, and it was, and as I said, being in denial almost. And then I remember about a week before she died, we were constantly getting mishaps from the doctors. They were telling her one day she's going to be cleared, next day she's dying, and it was so many ups and downs. But I remember about a week before she died, finally we went to see the doctor, and it was me sister-in-law and my mother in the meeting, and the doctor more or less put it in a positive way to my mother that, look, she just went through an operation for the cancer and they never got it all. Unfortunately, she couldn't get the rest, but he kind of put it in a positive way that she was passing without actually telling her she was passing.
Right.
You know, some doctors have a good way of speaking to patients, you know. So he didn't fully verify that she was passing. So I was thinking, oh my God. So my mother walked out, and I went back into the doctor and I said, listen, man, I actually rang my brother Joe and I said, Joe, look, it sounds like she's going to die here, but he never fully confirmed it. He says, you better get back into that doctor, man. So I got back into the doctor, and my brother John was actually over in Hollywood at the time with a new movie of his, promoting it, and he was at some film festival in Hollywood. And so it was me and my brother Joe taking care of things at home at the time. And so I went back in the doctor and was asking him, he said, listen, I can't tell you, you're not my patient. I said, listen to me. I said, I'm her son. She has 3 sons. That's all she has in this world. And she's all we have. We're going to be the ones arranging her funeral, everything like that. I said, she lives with us. You have to tell me, I says. And obviously it's against her ethic code, you know, to like speak without speaking to my mother, but he more or less just told me, look, she's going to be gone soon.
Right.
Don't know if it's weeks or months and man, it was crazy. I got home, and it was maybe 4 or 5 hours before I got to speak to my brother Joe to break the news to him. And I remember I broke the news to my brother Joe at home in my caravan just across the way, and I never seen my brother Joe proper cry before, and it was very, very difficult. My brother John was in America at the time, and obviously, you know, he's promoting his film, but my brother John's got a great sense, you know. He felt something was up. We weren't really that in contact with him, and we said we'd hold the news until he was back, and he got back and we broke the news to him, and I broke the news to him also, and it was crazy. I see my brother so tore up, man, tore apart because of this. And yeah, man, she died not too long later. The day before she died, there was a gang of people in there, you know, wanting to see my mother and all before she passes, and I ended up getting rid of everyone then eventually in the evening. And I said to my brother Joe, I want you to stay in the night, you and your wife. I want you to stay the night with her, because he didn't stay with her as much as I did because I lived directly next to her. And my brother John ended up staying in the room. He stayed in the room, my brother Joe and his wife stayed in the sitting room.
Yeah.
And overnight she died, and they came to my door the next morning, 8 o'clock, she was dead. And we sat there for a couple of hours, and me and my brother John carried her out dead. We carried her out when she passed away, carried her out to the van to put her in the back of the van, and that was just you talk about like seeing my friend get murdered in front of me, but carrying your mother out of her bed, deceased, into the back of a van was, you know. But after that, Terry, I actually made a promise to myself, you know, I'm going to pick myself up here.
Right.
I'm not going to let my mother die in vain. I'm going to try and do something for my mother now. You know, I'm going to try and let her name live on and prove to people, like, you know, she done something right.
Yeah.
So I made a promise there and then. So I ended up going 5.5 months sober. Wow. It was the first time I was 5.5 months sober since before I started drinking when I was a teenager.
Right.
You know, since I was a teenager, I just drank all the time. But it was the first time 5.5 months sober since I was probably 14.
What was your mother's name?
Kathleen.
Kathleen, yeah.
So
So we should dedicate this episode to her memory, because
Yeah.
it's a year. And anybody who's suffered that loss, you know, of a mother or father, we should dedicate it to them as well.
Absolutely.
So you've got this thing now that you've got to make your mum up there proud, right?
Yeah. So I said to myself, I'm going to change my life, man. Yeah. You know, and I had my wife now. I was married already about a couple of months. I said I'm going to change my life for my wife, for my mother, and my wife was pregnant with my son. Wow. I already have a daughter, a 6-year-old from a previous relationship. My daughter Bonnie. And my wife is pregnant with my son now, so I said I need to change. So I went 5.5 months sober. Yeah. My son John was born on January 15th.
I'm on the 13th. So
you're on the 13th, yeah.
All the best people are born in January, apparently.
Brilliant. maybe he can have his podcast one day. I'm May 5th.
Right, okay.
May 5th. But so I went 5.5 months sober, Terry. Started going to meetings, woke myself back up a bit, man. Even through this hardest time ever, I found some spiritual healing. I started getting signs, man. It's hard to explain, but so many spiritual signs around the place that my mother was around. Light flickering on and off constantly. Candles flickering on and off around the place. There was so many to even speak about. I'd be all day talking about it. But so many spiritual signs from my mother, you know. And it just so happened to be every time. So I'd go down the road jogging, Terry. Sometimes there'd be a lamppost turned off. And just as I got to that lamppost, the lamppost would turn on. Right. And that happened 4 or 5 times on different roads. You know, little spiritual signs like that. And I just happened to be thinking about my mother in the moment. Yeah. So, yeah.
But they do say that if spirits want to communicate with you, even if you can't hear or see them, they do other things like that. So
they come through electricity 100%. And they can come through like birds and, you know, stuff like that. So, yeah, so start getting positive, man. Start training, start looking after myself, looking after my family, and start just thinking, like, what am I going to... I don't even know what I want to do here, but I want to do something great in life now. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy anymore. I just want to be a different man now. I want to fulfill my potential. So I just start training, man, up in Crumlin Boxing Club. I said I want to turn pro in boxing. You know, I haven't boxed in years. And look, it's a long shot, but I want to turn pro. And look, that quickly went out the window when I heard about this bare knuckle thing. And I thought, you know, I had a couple of bare knuckle fights in the past. Right. This is suited to me. Bare knuckle fighting in a ring, in a venue, for cash. Fuck that, I want that. I want some of that, you know? I said, this just sounds brilliant. Right. Brutality at its finest.
how do you train for a bare knuckle fight? Is it because I've seen obviously bare knuckle fights in the street, not in the hay or in the ring, but I've seen them on the street, and normally once you've hit someone once or twice, it's all over. But I mean, with that, I've seen some of the on the traveller camps go on for like fucking 20 minutes where they're just fighting each other, and you just think, how the fuck can they stand there and get punched in the face and the body like that and still be standing there? Is there some sort of conditioning or training?
Well, of course. Listen, and if you're fighting, there's always going to be a big level of conditioning. I'm training for a bare knuckle fight right now. Right. 2. 1 against a fellow traveller, yeah, and 1 in I'm going to be fighting either in London or Nottingham in November with Gav.
Oh, well, let me know if you're in London, mate.
Yeah,
I'll come and I'll put the wig on if you want.
Yeah, put the wig on. I barely noticed you without it. But come and watch me knock somebody out. Yeah. But I'm actually training for a traveller bare knuckle fight now. It's just we had a bit of a feud recently. I can't speak too much details about it. It was very, very, very recent, you know.
Right. But can you even though you might not want to name names, can you give us a context of what the feud was about? And
look, there was an argument in a pub. Someone and their family got broke up, and a gang of them came back looking for revenge, but never got any of us, and it escalated from there because we knew there was a gang of them, and then that escalated a gang of us, and we were back and forward, man, just like madness for days, you know. Now I'm not even in that life, and I'm doing different things in my life right now. So to be dragged into something like that was just, I hated it. You know what I mean? But
so did you say let's have a bare knuckle fight instead?
Yes, yeah. So someone got in the middle and says, listen, let's have a bare knuckle fight. Right. So we organised 3 fights. So me, my other brother Joe, and a cousin of mine, Gabriel, is fighting 3 of them, 3 cousins or whatever, in maybe like 12 weeks time. Right. So how you train for that is, so I'll give you an example. Sometimes, Terry, you know, in boxing fights, professional boxing fights, you have 3-minute rounds. Traveller Street bare knuckle, it's unlimited. You could fight for 10 hours if the fight goes on for 10 hours. Wow. It's up to you. It's mainly of course it's a physical game, Terry, but it's more of a mental game than boxing, because you've got to have that mental strength to stay there. Right. You know, when the going gets tough, or when it's hard, or you
can't really train that. You either got it or you ain't.
You've either got it or you ain't, for sure. You can more just train your physicality, you know. But you've either got it or you ain't. So I
didn't know if you punch trees or people hit you with sticks or something to toughen your body up. You know what I mean?
If you can go through with that.
Or you went up to Harley Street and got some steel plates in your jaw, so when they hit the jaw, they hurt their hands. You know what I mean?
I think you just gave me an idea there. What a chin I'd have then. I'd have a better chin than Carl Froch. But yeah, so right now the kind of training I'm doing now, Terry, is like I'm doing 3-minute rounds of the bags and pads and shadow box and stuff. But then I'm doing like unlimited rounds. So randomly I could go from doing a 3-minute round on the bags to a 20-minute round. It's just messing with me, give me a psychological edge, you know. I could do a 20-minute round next or a 3-minute round. I don't know.
And when you described your bare knuckle fighting style, Paco, would you say you're a boxer or a slugger?
I'd say I'm a box puncher.
Right. Okay.
I can box and I can fight.
Right.
I enjoy the fight on the inside, but because I've got some good experience and I've got a decent skill set, sometimes I'd like to drag myself into a fight just because I love the buzz of it. Right. I just love I like being on the inside. I like taking shots. I don't know why. It's just I get into that psychotic mode once when I'm not in the ring. I'm not thinking like that, but when I'm in there, I'm in that buzz, and I just want to be involved in a firefight. Right. But I'd rather use my boxing ability if I could choose.
And what's your signature shot? Is it an uppercut, a hook, or a right hand?
Probably a left hook to the body.
Right, left hook to the body.
Yeah. Okay. That'd probably be, when I sparred over the years or fought over the years, that's probably the shot that knocked the most people down with a left hook to the body. Right. So any bare knuckle fighters that's going to be fighting me soon, watch out.
Yeah, watch out for the left hook to the body.
Watch out. Or maybe that's a lie. Yeah. I don't know. Could be the right hand.
And how many fights have you had to date?
I've had 4 fights, Terry. I had my first bare knuckle fight when I was 16 years old, right, against a cousin of mine, right, who so happens to be a good friend of mine today. Yeah. He's a lovely fella, humble guy, good fighter, very good fighter. Not really about that life, family man, but very good boxer. Yeah. We fought for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Look, some of it was down to because we fought in a very big place, right, but also 2 of us were super fit. We were 16 years old. We were boxers. We were ripped. We were a little bit crazy, a little bit touched in the mind. Didn't want to give best to each other because we were kind of close to each other. It was like, I'm not letting you babe me. Right. I'm not letting you babe me. And it was just like, it went on for ages. Right. And there was a lot of punishment dished out in that fight, man. Like,
what's the longest fight you've had?
That was it, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And then my second, that was a draw fight. My second fight was when I was 18. That lasted 55 minutes. I won after 55 minutes. And then my third was when I was like 21 and 22 was before it, and I won them in quick succession. Right. About minute and a half each.
And how old are you now?
28.
28.
I'm just hitting my prime.
Right.
Sexy, 28-year-old, sexy Irish guy, coming over to London to take over. Like, what more is there?
So with the bare knuckle boxing stuff, what weight are you boxing at?
Well, right now I'm very fat and overweight. I've been eating a lot lately. I'll be probably fighting Terry at about 13 and a half stone.
Right, okay.
Right now.
So what's that? That's not crew. Is that light heavy?
In around the 80, light heavy-ish.
Right, light heavy.
I'd like to say I'd get the middleweight, but we'll see.
Right, okay. So it's either middle or light heavy. And with the bare knuckle boxing, is there similar to, you know, when you look at the normal boxing? Because I know bare knuckle boxing, obviously it was an underground scene, but now it's become mainstream. In America, it's gone really big, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But is there like titles you can get?
Oh, of course. There's titles you can get. Like, obviously, like I follow the BKB over here in England and all the bare knuckle organisations. Like, you know, there's British titles, of course, for the Brits, and there's European titles, there's world titles. And each organisation kind of have their own world title.
So what? I mean? So which one is like the WBC, which is the holy grail of it? So
well, in actual boxing, in bare knuckle. In bare knuckle, they don't have the WBCs.
No, but what I mean is there one that's similar? So like, if you was to look at all the different organisations, is there one that you go, if I'm going to win a world title, I want that one?
No, not really. As I said, each bare knuckle organisation kind of have their own world titles.
Right.
You know what I mean? The way I look at it, Terry, is if you're a world champion on the biggest bare knuckle platform, you're probably the best you're the real world champion. You know, if a bare knuckle platform that has 5,000 followers and you're a world champion versus a bare knuckle platform that has 10 million followers and you're a world champion, I'd say he's the real world champion. You know what I mean? And this guy is, and that's not being bad, but there is a lot of world champions out there in bare knuckle fighting, even over here in England and in different countries that's world champions, and they're not great, like, if I'm being honest with you.
And what's your goal, Paco? Are you looking for a British title or world title? What
I'm looking to earn money for sure.
So the titles, you just want the money.
I want I want cash. I want glory.
Right.
I don't do anything unless I like to follow things that I love.
Right.
And I love fighting. I know a lot about fighting, and I hate losing.
Right.
I love to win. I hate losing. Like, I'd rather spend a couple of years in prison than lose. I'd rather spend a couple of years in prison than lose a bare knuckle fight on the street anyway against a fellow traveller.
Right.
I'd rather spend 5-10 years in prison.
Right.
That's how much I hate losing, and I promise you that. So I love to win. So what comes with winning is glory and titles, and that's what I would be aiming for. I'd be aiming for the best titles there is, Terry. That's being honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm not coming just to fucking make up numbers or anything. And at this stage of my life, man, after everything I've been through, I wouldn't come in unless I thought I could do something big.
Right.
I believe I can. Like, I've got good experience. I've got the grit. I've got the heart. I've been through it all, and I've got the ability, man, and I've got something different, you know. And there's the traveller element to it, you know. So recently, I had a couple of words with Conor McGregor. My brother John premiered his movie in Conor McGregor's pub, the Black Forge Inn, in Dublin. We had a couple of words with McGregor. McGregor was speaking about the BKFC and that he'd love to have a traveller in the BKFC because bare knuckle fighting originates from the travellers.
Right.
Like, it's a traveller thing, you know. When you think bare knuckle fighting, you know yourself, Terry, you think about travellers bare knuckle fighting.
Was it? So I remember seeing, and this must be 20 years ago. I remember getting a VHS video. I don't know if you remember what they are. But
Of course, they
I'm just checking because some people go, "What's a VHS?"
I used to watch them when I was a kid.
People don't even know what DVD is, right? but I had a VHS. Dan the Man Rooney versus Paddy McGinty.
Annie McGinley.
Sorry, Annie McGinty. And there was and it was all like, you know, VHS, it was all a bit like that. But it was in Ireland and it went on forever. But
that was a famous fight in Crossmaglen in Ireland.
Right, that's it.
Annie McGinley versus Dan Rooney.
That's it.
Two legends of the Irish travelling fight game.
But I remember seeing that and thinking, fucking hell, you know.
Annie McGinley, an amazing character. Someone I don't know personally, but I love him. He's an amazing character. You should check him up on YouTube, type him up. He is just an outstanding character, man. So fun and a true fighting man. Dan Rooney, great fighter.
They're both still around now, though, right?
Still around, yeah.
Right, wow.
They're still around.
Are they still fighting or not? Are they?
Annie McGinley would probably still fight you, yeah.
Right, wow.
Even at his advanced age.
Because I think in that video they both looked like they was in their 40s, so they must be 60s.
No,
now.
I think they were in their 30s.
Oh, really?
Maybe they might have been 40. I'm not sure.
Right.
They're definitely at least in their 60s, 30, yeah. But yeah, man, they're two legends, two great fighters. And amazing characters.
Yeah.
Amazing characters, man.
So over your years, if you was gonna impart any wisdom on any of our viewers or listeners, what words of advice would you give them? You know, if they come to you and said, "Give me some life advice."
Definitely, man. There's a couple of things. Like, I'd say before you sit there and think your whole world's fucked up, and why am I in this position? I didn't deserve this. I deserve this. I should get this. Why did I grow up like this? Why is my mother an addict? Why is my father an addict? Just remember, you're there for a reason. It ain't your fault, but you don't gotta blame yourself or blame anyone else for the rest of your life. If you come from a bad background, a background of struggle, it can make you more it can make you stronger than the person who never came from struggle, in a way. And you can use that to bring you to the top and bring you very far in life if it's used the right way. Just because you come from a bad place doesn't mean you're a bad person. A lot of the time it's the great people that end up in a bad place because sometimes their heart can be bigger than their mind. You know, to use their heart on the sleeve sometimes, and they end up in a bad situation. and then just life gets fucked up, and that passes down through generations. So yeah, if you're from a bad place, it doesn't mean that has to be your life or your kids' lives. There's always a way out. You just gotta look for it for sure. You gotta work towards it, and you gotta look outside your door and look at all the negativity going on. You gotta stay away from it, because once you step in, it's hard to step out.
Well, I was going to say earlier, and I, you know, when you're, like you said, in a position of where you sort of have no hope, or you can't get a job, or like you said, everybody else seems to be doing well and you're not. It's very easy to, if you're looking around and you see the guy up to no good, and on the face of it, he's doing really well.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, I'll have some of that, because it's and in life there is no shortcut, there is no magic formula, there is no magic wand, or you can read fucking 20 self-help books, you can read The Secret every day and say, I'm going to get a Ferrari, but unless you actually go out and try and get it and do something to get it, it's not just going to appear in your drive because you're sitting there going, I want a Ferrari, right? So I think in life, there's a friend of mine who's from Belfast, funny enough, and his name's Tom Smith, and he trained with a guy called Grant Cardone, who does this 10X thing, and he believes you can do anything you want and you can achieve. And one of the things he said to me, which stuck with me forever, is you can manifest what you want, you can write down what you want, you can believe what you want, but you have to take massive action to get it. It's like you having a bare knuckle fight and you being really good at fighting, but then not training. Right? Unless you actually put the training in, you might get lucky, you might be technically better, you might have a lucky punch, but if you put the training in, you know that you've got the skill, you know what you're doing, but that guy's going to have had to put in the hours to beat you. You're going to beat him because you put in it. So that's the massive action bit, and that's what I love. I love actually understanding that you can get whatever you want, but it ain't going to come easy.
It's never going to come easy.
And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
It's the biggest cliche saying in the world, but very true.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would do it,
Yeah.
I was only said to a couple of my cousins earlier, just recently, a couple of days ago, the same thing you just said to me. We might be technically better than these fellas we're fighting. We might favour ourselves, and maybe the outsiders are favouring us too, doing the fight. But that doesn't stop us from having to get super fit and ensuring this win and being prepared the right way. Because the biggest mistake in life can be overlooking somebody or overlooking a situation and taking something for granted. I've learned that in the past, you've got to be humble in life.
Yeah.
Regardless if you're up there, down there, against him, you've got to be humble and treat everybody on a level, with a level of respect. Or else you're fucked, man, you'll be found out. So, yeah, I would agree with what you're saying, Terry, yeah. I keep nearly calling you Tony over Tony Tucker. You know that?
I can put the wig on.
Yeah, I swear to God, even if I was talking to Gav, whatever, and I mentioned it, I'd say Tony by an accent over Tony Tucker, honestly, yeah.
Do you know something?
It was a great character, though.
Thank you, brother.
Great,
do you know what?
character,
honestly,
man,
I promise you that on my gravestone it will say Tony Tucker was here. Do you know what I mean? It's 17 years that I first played that character, and it's one of the things.
I love Rise of the Foot Soldier, man. Brilliant.
Oh, wicked.
I love it, man. I love it. How many is there now?
Well, there's been 6.
There's been 6.
But I've been in 4.
You've been in 4, that's right, yeah.
And then there's a computer game
the
as well.
Dates one and a computer game?
Yeah.
Really?
You can download it on your phone.
You're
you can beat Tony Tucker. You go and smashing people up.
You're joking me. I wouldn't be surprised.
No, it is. I promise you, it's on the App Store and the Google or Apple. You can get it. You can be Pat Tate, Tony Tucker, or Craig Rolfe.
That's brilliant.
And it's it's just going around beating people up. So you probably quite enjoy that.
That is absolutely unbelievable, man. It's been a very successful franchise. I think you're probably the most successful British franchise of all time, are you?
Well, do you know what? There isn't one.
There isn't one.
So I think people always joke. I mean, I've sort of come out of it now, and I'm doing a new film franchise called Tales from a Trap, which is set in the UK rap scene. So I developed that 18 months ago, and what people don't realise, when you come up with an idea, when you develop a project, you don't just go, I've got an idea, let's do this, and then you go and make it. Some of our projects we've been working on for 5 years. So you develop these projects, and then they always happen. Like when we did the original Foot Soldier, I got the rights to the book I think it was 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
Got the script written. It took probably 2 years of knocking on doors. So we had the year of developing the script and getting it all, and then 2 years of knocking on doors, asking people for money, telling people about the project before somebody went, right, let's do it. And then 2007, it's September 2007 it came out.
Yeah.
So, it was, in film times from when we got developing it to making it, 3 years is pretty quick.
3 years is pretty quick. I actually understand a lot of what
Well, because
you're
your
saying.
brother's an actor, right?
My brother's an actor. He could spend 2 years trying to get a film up and running. After he writes it, might take him a little while to write it, but once he writes it, it's then looking who's going to invest, which investor am I meeting this week, which guy am I meeting this week, who will I get to direct it, what's the best production team I can get, It takes a couple of years just to get it together, and then shooting the film could take months.
And then you got, from when you actually.
By the time it's shot, then you're going into the edit phase, which could take a year or two. It's years. It's a couple of years before something comes out, and people's wondering, where is this person? I haven't seen him do this in a while.
Right.
Hey, it takes me a couple of years to actually get something great done.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything in it. It's like if you were just churning out shit, you could do one every month, right? But if you actually wanted to create something good, and all the films, I made 34 films, and some people will say there's films that I've made that are better than others.
Yeah,
but they've all been consistently good, and we've all put our heart and soul into it, and they've all been on, the cinema. They've all been on Netflix. They've all been on Amazon. They've all been distributed around the world. So as a film producer, you can be, if you can bring things in on budget, and you can create something that people want to watch and people like, that's really, you've achieved. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, that's your game, Terry.
Yeah.
That's your game. That's the art you've chosen. And you want to be the greatest you can be, man, You don't want to just get out there and just throw shit out there, you know what I mean?
That's right.
You want to be the best you can be in whatever field you're in.
And it's funny because people do comment, like, oh, all you can do is play Tony Tucker, but I can play any role. But the thing is, that happens to be the role that's defined my career. And some actors never get a role that defines their career. Do you know what I mean? They could be in 50 things, and people go, oh, I recognise him, but they don't know what he does. Do you know what I mean? It's like Ray Winston. When you see Ray Winston, he was Sexy Beast, or he was, he's been in so many good films.
Ray Winston is an incredible actor.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Danny Dyer, people remember The Business.
The Business,
Football Factory,
Football Factory.
So there's actors that have been in things that if you see Danny Dyer,
you just know them.
You'll
for
either
that,
go,
like,
Business, Football Factory, or EastEnders, right? Because they're the three things that everybody knows him for, right? But same with Ray Winston. People will know him Sexy Beast. People remember him from Love, Honour and Obey. People remember him from. He's been in so many big Hollywood movies, but
Stephen Graham, from This Is England.
Yeah, but he's another one.
Of course, Stephen Graham's an outstanding actor. He's probably in an argument for my favourite actor. I'd say Stephen Graham.
Well, if you look at him, Stephen Graham, Tom Hardy, they're all
great actors,
amazing actors.
I love Stephen Graham though. I think he's incredible, man. Absolutely incredible.
When he started popping up in Scorsese's films, that's when you knew he'd made it.
100%. I tell you what I loved him in. I don't know if you've seen it, Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Did you see his performance as Al Capone in that?
Yeah, it was good.
It was the best. It was the best Al Capone I've seen. There's nobody on the level. I've seen Tom Hardy do Al Capone.
De Niro's going to be upset, if he is.
Listen, that's a bit disrespectful because.
No, I'm joking.
No, because De Niro's Al Capone was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
When I say there's nobody on the level, of course, De Niro's one was brilliant.
Right.
But for me, Stephen Graham was the best.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Well, also, we don't know De Niro. We know Stephen Graham, so
yeah. There you go. He's a little bit closer.
But Paco, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah.
We've had a really good chat today. I wish you all the luck with your up-and-coming bare knuckle fights. And, let me know when you have one, and I will definitely come and wear the El Paco shirt.
I'm gonna pull you on that one.
Yeah.
I'll have it for you.
Yeah, wicked. But no, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, brother. Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning into the Criminal Connection podcast. El Paco, what an amazing guest. What a great guy. What an amazing journey. Make sure you tune in next week. We've got another fantastic guest, and we will see you on the other side.